With our journey of RKO in the 40s after Citizen Kane, we talked about Val Lewton and the success of Cat People, with Val Lewton take over productions, and pretty much RKO will give them titles and say, come up with something with that after Cat People. And of course, with the success, we're just going to kind of do this factory rotation. We already talked with A Walk with a Zombie from 1943. But we have to talk about another one, a significant footnote of 1943. This is Leopard Man from RKO. Very similar context. I'm sure when they made Cat People, like something like that, something with a cat in it. Doing it, yeah.
Well, you're telling me this isn't another Marvel movie?
Right. Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we'll continue our journey with RKO in the 40s with the 1943, The Leopard Man.
Meow, everybody. Welcome back to the show. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
You have cats? We should have cats all around here. Something like that.
I don't know if you'd make it.
I'm Nick for the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for following us. And thanks for finding us. And for our loyal fans, thank you for continuing to support the show. And for the new subscribers that we recently, thank you for the new subscribers subscribing to our show. Yeah, go ahead. Tell your friends about the show. Hit a like and subscribe. Tell little things that you can do to help promote the show. Also, you can follow the show on Instagram and on X, and both Kyle and I are members of the Minnesota Film Critics Alliance. Check out the webpage to find other critic reviews as well as ours, and today we're talking about Leopard Man. So what the heck's going on?
So when a tame leopard escapes from its carriers during a publicity stunt gone wrong, a small New Mexico town turns to fear, especially after bodies start piling up. But is it the leopard, or just a man, or something more?
If you haven't seen the title, it's kind of almost like a Marvel, like a Marvel superhero kind of a thing, or you're thinking like Nightmare Alley, like a carnival thing, like a Leopard Man, and make sure like a horror suspense thing. Yeah. But in actuality, I don't want to spoil anything, but it's simply just a man with a leopard.
Yeah, it's the Leopard Man.
It's kind of Val Lewton playing, I got you. You want a Leopard Man, but I got you a leopard and a man.
Yeah, but so much of those films of that time period were again about the what you don't see more than what you do see, and that was the case very much with Cat People. I mean, I would almost say this is kind of cousinly to Cat People.
Very cheaply. I think this is far more cheap than Cat People.
Yeah.
Production was made very quickly, and it's almost a factory assembly line of making these movies. RKO very famously was talking about, we don't care to win the wars, we just want to make money and a happy ending, as well as kind of scare the little kids also to entice them. And this is kind of RKO. I would say in between Cat People and this one, this is the kind of formula structure you're going to see.
Yeah.
I would say Walk with a Zombie is the masterpiece. Cat People is the foot in the door, but this is kind of the step procedure, how you continue on with the journey of it.
Yeah, and how you can take the preconceived notions of someone who, say, is familiar with a Cat People or something else and kind of twist it a little bit. You get kind of just a slight turn of it as you go through the narrative. And, it seems like it has a beat for beat how it's going to play out that's pretty standard, but it's how that's manipulated as the narrative goes on that's quite interesting.
Yeah, in the industry we call it beat changes. And this is not so much a smooth transition as well as a kind of, this movie especially has little vignettes of creepiness to it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get down to the facts here a little bit.
Of course, so the film was shot from February to March of 1943.
That's pretty long for that.
And then it was released 2 months later in May. It was considered at the time, of course, to be one of the first serial killer films. That term serial killer hadn't been used, of course, until much later. I want to get into that a little bit. But it's pretty interesting that it is a film that is known for being the kind of the slasher model decades beforehand, and of course kind of different sensibilities.
Yeah, I would get a little bit more. Well, continue on. Well, I'm talking.
Of course. Well, of course, with that, then you have also these idea of the in the 80s there was that idea when you made a horror film, when you made a slasher film, it was like a body or a nude person has to be on every 10 minutes or else what are we doing? And this film kind of has a dead body every 15 minutes as the narrative goes on.
Yeah.
Which is quite interesting. It is beat for beat. You could almost set your watch to it.
Directed by
Jacques Tourneur.
Jacques Tourneur, who also did
Cat People, Out of the Past.
Right, Out of the Past.
We talked about I Walked with a Zombie. This is our 4th episode on a Jacques Tourneur film, and we're probably going to come back again.
And like we'll continue on with our review of it, but very a staple of Jacques Tourneur with the shadows and the lights and the creepiness.
Yeah.
Story is this is why I want to get emphasis is.
Ardell Ray wrote the screenplay for this one again.
Yeah.
But it's based on the Cornell Woolrich novel Black Alibi.
Yeah.
To be noted as well.
Cornell Woolrich is one of those that doesn't get part of the conversation when we talk about Dashiell Hammett with Maltese Falcon, with Ray Chandler books. And Cornell Woolrich kind of he got into pulp simply by every other story he was doing wasn't getting the success that he wanted. And eventually, fine, I'll just do cheap and fast.
Yeah.
But there's a certain talent to him, and it's I think this is called Black Alibi.
Black Alibi, yep.
Where it's very pulpy, but there's a sense of talent to it. Actually, it's almost written. If you read it too fast, you're going to miss it. And I think he should be part of the conversation when we talk about Dashiell Hammett and Raymond Chandler. This kind of trinity set. That he didn't get a lot of more accolades.
He's kind of got that name recognizability where you hear it and you recognize who he was and what he was known for, but he was never listed with the greats. And
it's his real name.
Yeah.
I use other field. You have to be an author with that name, and he actually used other pet names, but that is his real name.
Yeah, and you tend to get some authors where everybody starts off with write what you know. And then you kind of evolve into either write what you're good at or write what you want and be damned with the rest of it. And he kind of took the route of, okay, I'm good at this clearly. People seem to really take to this. I'm going to write what people want to read as opposed to what I want to write maybe.
And if you want to go back to his history, he won a bunch of awards for his previous books and thought that was going to be his ticket. But then his trajectory changed. And then his life is pretty much a horror story. Eventually end up a horror story as himself from the late 60s. Yeah, so Cornell, based on this book, written by Ardell Ray. Ardell Ray. We talked a lot about her with A Walk with a Zombie, so if you want to stop the tape and go back to that previous episode, we talk more about her. But then also edited by... I want to talk about
Mark Robson, who we are talking about, I think, for the 30th time on this show, and unintentionally, I might add.
Right. And it's just Val Lewton working with a core of group of people that he trusted to kind of work this assembly line, factory notation, how to make a movie of just jumbling, all right, no, because eventually Mark would direct a picture, and then it'll be edited by somebody else who's also directed previously.
Yeah.
So it's almost like this recycling kind of close-knit group that's at RKO.
Yeah, I became aware of Mark Robson actually during our episode on Earthquake. And then kind of dived in a little bit further. I watched Valley of the Dolls and other things like that.
I think he edited I Walk with a Zombie too.
Oh yeah, he did. Yeah. And that's the thing is that he's just been here this whole time editing movies, but I became first aware of him as a director, of course, because of just the timeliness connection to where I am in the timeline.
Yeah.
But of course he had kind of done a lot of different things, mostly editing, but he'd done some other work behind the scenes, and he's just been in the business. That was just what he did. He tried new things the entire lifetime. So
there's really no big star of this movie. There's no somebody ring or a name recognition you were recognized now, but in the 40s all this movie has is people under contract for RKO looking for work.
Yeah, which is what you had to do when you needed to make something lower budget. When you were making your B pictures, you weren't really able to get an A actor with a B picture, Yeah.
So it's a lot of people under contract for RKO. The set is on RKO. It's supposed to take place in New Mexico, but you can change any direction of scenery.
Yeah,
you just know that you're on the set, right?
Yeah, when I saw New Mexico on, I was like, "You sure?
Right?
You really sure?"
Right. So just a few more minutes of notes. What else do we have?
Yeah. So of course, we had lead actor Dennis O'Keefe. I guess probably maybe the name just because he's the lead of the film. He appeared in Duck Soup and the original Scarface film as well.
Yeah.
It also co-stars Margot. The one word Margot, as you will.
Right. If you want to look her name, it's like Margot. It's like 7 different names.
Yeah. So she played Gabriella, or also known as Clo-Clo, and she had done films like Viva Zapata, Lost Horizon. But again, these are actors that were part of the system, less the ones that sold the tickets.
Yeah.
And it was more. I think it was actually more of Jacques and probably Val's connection to it they would have. The other big name that I want to point out is music by Roy Webb. We've talked about Roy Webb a couple times on the show here as well. He also did Out of the Past with Tourneur quite a few years later.
Yeah, we talked about Out of the Past too. Yeah.
And then of course did Notorious with Hitchcock. So
very much almost same kind of fabric.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So all this leads up to what I would say the pinnacle is Out of the Past, would be pinnacle of these productions. But these are all just the little steps of trust, of networking of people that he would always work with, and then the big staple is Out of the Past.
Yeah, it was kind of like a bunch of molasses that just started collecting things as it kept rolling down the hill, and over time just it collect everything that it needed to make a full-fledged feature. Whether or not it worked, I mean, there was a lot of films that were made during this time that didn't, and it's kind of, this was one that I think I received a few more mixed reviews upon initial release. And over time has become a little bit more well-known. Of course, the recently passed William Friedkin cites it as one of his favorite movies.
Really?
And he actually, if you have the Blu-ray of it, I think there is a William Friedkin commentary on it.
Oh my God!
That apparently is quite something.
If you find it, put a link in the comments.
But I was clued into that, and I got to hear a couple snippets. And he's a big fan of the film. He also cited that as a major inspiration to Psycho and Pulp Fiction, because of their ability to kind of focus on the narrative itself and how the narrative twists and turns in directions you didn't expect, as well as kind of breaking down the language a little bit more. So
right, it's almost like we'll get into my review, but this is very much of the staple of somebody's committing these murders, and it's almost projected as very obvious, but once the reveal is like, well, why didn't I think of that? Right.
Yeah. And in fact,
it's always the staple, like for Scream. Right?
When you look at the film, when I watched it, of course, I was thinking of the 80s slashers. I was thinking of, how this film had kind of been there as a blueprint. How I don't know that John Carpenter had it in his mind when he was thinking of Halloween or anything like that, but I do feel like it was part of that kind of what we would see evolve into the modern day slasher. But of course, we also had Mario Bava, who cited this as one of his favorite films as well. And you can see some of the elements that were at play in this film kind of molding themselves into what would become very popular with the Giallo sensation of the 70s in Italy. So you can see that that's being at play here. It's so fascinating to note that a film from the 40s had such an inspiration on modern day horror in such a sense.
I'm glad that you mentioned the Italian giallos, because this is very much kind of almost the Italians getting inspiration from American films of the 40s and what they do, and American movies getting inspiration what they did in the 60s. To do.
It's almost like, again, the Robson effect, if you will, where it's just like everybody's just kind of moving from position to position, taking on what they like.
Yeah. All right. Perfect time to get into a little bit of our review of Leopard Man. Like I said, I've seen a lot of these. This is kind of the third time I've seen this movie, so this is his first time. So I always throw it off to Kyle for his first time viewing. What is your overall assessment of Leopard Man, even though we kind of peppered it a little bit?
Well, of course, my favorite Tourneur film is Cat People. It has been, and it probably always will be. I just have such a connection
with
to
the
it.
Val Luton bus.
Yeah,
the
but
Luton bus.
As far as it goes for Jacques' other works, I really like this one because I really like how it plays on the implications and on the insidiousness of a small town. I really like those kinds of films that deal with small towns eating themselves from within.
And very
I think
Stephen King kind of a thing.
Yeah, Stephen King did that. It's also probably one of the reasons why I love Halloween Kills more than everybody else, is because I like the idea of a town just consuming itself with fear and rage. And that is what is at play here, is that from the moment the leopard goes missing, we're concerned about the leopard killing people. And as we start to unravel layers, we start to wonder, is it the leopard or is it someone else? And then who can we trust within our little small town? This one incident of a missing leopard triggers a whole series of events that really kind of unravels everyone.
Right. This was at the time kind of a downer for RKO. It was trash, but it kind of, like Kyle said, the critics have kind of softened up to it. And I would say an overall archetype script is there, but I think you appreciate the small kind of a construct of vignettes. Like the girl just go get the cornflower and the door shuts and then the wind, it's like, all right, we already know what's going to happen to her. It's almost like I switch and you can see the wind is blowing and you hear the wind, like we know she's in danger. And you understand, and it plays on the emphasis of light and dark. It's almost like a grunge song. We go light and serious, light and serious, right? Soft and hard, soft and hard.
I see.
I think people weren't ready for something like that. And I think it's kind of almost, I get what's going to happen, and the viewers are like, all right, then I'm bored. Where I think nowadays people understand and study it as how it's almost like a light switch. We go light, dark, because there are certain soft scenes with the dance,
Yeah, I mean, it does play by a bit more what we would call like conventional paint by numbers, where films of later decades would use this archetype pretty well. What I find so unusual about it isn't so much that the first 60 minutes of it are such a downer, but that tacked on happy moment at the end really drove me out. Like, the final scene, I was like, oh, we're ending here.
We gotta have we gotta have a happy love story at the end.
Yeah, and so of course it's of the time. Yeah. But I found it very jarring that light switch flipped on so quickly after we had been in the dark for so long.
Right, and his the confession at the end of the bad guy or the bad girl very much looks like the cornstalks from A Walk with a Zombie. It's almost shot like that, like the train, and he's confessing all this like a serial killer, that he just has this appetite to do it impulsively by monitoring other behaviors. Yeah. And we get almost this linear excuse like, oh, right, like a routine killer that we never seen before, never really discussed in film before. And it's an argument that this one is the first time to feature kind of a serial killer.
Yeah. And of course, me coming from a background of like my childhood love was Scooby-Doo. Like there was nothing like a good unmasking scene, and then being able
you get people come in like, this town is messed up, and you almost have to take an outsider to kickstart the neighborhood. Yeah, but right. I do like the bridge sequence is shot very well. The you're a gold digger. Well, why not? Kind of sequences kind of play on fun, but you understand that the money's taken. She goes back out there, and the money drops on the floor. But that's all we focus on, rather than the background. We hear just ferocious thrashing, and then your mind fills in the blanks, which is very. It's anti-John Carpenter. John Carpenter doesn't like these movies because they just show it. But I love this context of my mind saying, why she's getting it. Yeah. It's far more important what's going on in here than what we see.
And it has that ability when I've walked away from it, I've been removed from it for a few days now, and I'm remembering a much more graphic film. And I think that's because of how strong that implication is and how strong the what you don't see plays on your mind, is that it does have this hypnotic trance of making me think I saw something much more graphic than I did.
Right. It's shot very like the Walk with a Zombie cat people in this movie. They're very like sublime almost. Yeah. Almost like a fever dreamish, and that makes it even more. We understand it's almost like not a contexture of reality. It's not almost in these kind of dreamlike movie world.
Yeah, and there are a few films that have come out, and I won't list specifics because it's all about the ending, but there are a number of films that have come out in the decades following this film that have played on the whole, is it real, is it a monster, or is it man? That this is kind of something that we hadn't really seen in this way before.
Right, when you do writing, it's man versus nature, man versus animal, man versus himself, all these variety of conflicts. And you got it all here, too.
Yeah, because a number of the Universal monster films, which preceded this by about 10 years, would feature man literally turning into monster and then back. It was almost like an excuse, if you will, is that I'm doing these horrible things because I'm turning into something that's horrific. And this film gives us a hint that might be where it's going, but then it kind of turns and kind of twists on that, and it shows us normal people that may have done horrible things.
Yeah, you get a walled-in cemetery, and she's locked in there. I love that part, too. It's fascinating. And it's shot very stationary. I think Val Lewton, as well as Jock, understands when you're going to shoot the tear, do straight on forward and let the tear happen. But when you want to get creative, do it when it feels like it's a safe event happening. When you have like the party and there's nothing else, you can play a little crafty. But when you want to show the violence and you really want to emphasize it, just straight on, set the camera.
Yeah, and I think that's why the death scenes worked pretty well for me, is because they do have that sensibility that it's that operation of a murder scene and then the follow-up and then another murder scene that's seemingly unconnected and then more follow-up, and the idea that it kind of gives a gut punch to the film every 15 minutes. Yeah. So even if you're starting to lose kind of your focus on the narrative and you're starting maybe to become less interested, it's like, oh, we got another death coming on here, and it's morbid, but you know that the audience is going for it. And that's kind of what kicked me back into gear every 15 minutes, was like, oh, who's going to get it this time? Oh, it's going to be her. Oh, no. And then like you get kind of that nervous feeling the whole time. Right. And that's, I think, really effective. And it showcases why, again, a lot of these tropes started with Jock and then kind of peppered into what we would consider modern day horror.
And especially like a horror noir. People call it a noir. I would label it a noir, but horror first, then noirs.
Yeah, because it's a little bit less focused on one character's journey. Yeah. You know, it's the styled noir, but not really the substance of noir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I already know. What do you think? Walk with a Zombie or Leopard Man? Which one is? I mean, there's no wrong answer.
I think I'd place this one just above Walked with a Zombie because I think it's a film that I'd reach for a little bit more. It's got that, like I told you before.
And I'm a little bit the opposite.
There was Walked with a Zombie. I think was a really well made movie, but did it really curve me in the way? Did it keep me as enthralled as this film? No, not exactly. So yeah. So clearly cat related horror films from Jacques Tourneur are the ones that get me.
Cat before zombies.
Yes.
All right. Keep the conversation. What do you think of our review of Leopard Man? Do you rate it with the other arcade movies we have already discussed of the mid-40s?
Yeah, let us know your thoughts down below. Give us your favorite Jacques film. We've covered 4 on the show with Cat People. This one, I Walked with a Zombie and Out of the Past. Let us know if your favorite isn't one of those.
Eventually, we're going to get to Seventh Victim.
Yeah, should we cover that one next? Best way to make sure is to click on that Patreon link down below, like Nick mentioned.
Right.
You can force us to watch a movie that we really want you to force us to watch. Thank you guys for joining us so very much. You can find my many reviews over at goatfilmreviews.com. I've still got some more horror coming out as we come to a close of the year because I've just been so busy with other things and personal stuff. You're going to see more horror and a lot of remaining 2023 reviews over on that site.
Hey, you can find my show, the St. Paul Filmcast, anywhere you find podcasts, and don't get a pet leopard.
Oh, now I'm getting a pet leopard.